He was, at least at the end, he was on Prozac, yes.
We have some podcaster friends who attribute their success greatly to being able to be open about the issues that they have gone through in their life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's absolutely accurate. I think people like to connect with people who are going through similar things.
So there's a quote here, which I will give, which is something that Richie, gosh, when did he, I don't remember when he said this. This was in the last year or so before he died, if I am correct. And it is, quote, and by the way, before it's him talking about his thoughts on suicide, because that's the theory we're in. And he says, in terms of the S word, that does not enter my mind. It never has done in terms of an attempt, because I am stronger than that. I might be a weak person, but I can take pain, unquote.
Yeah, that comes back to kind of the thing I was talking about earlier with the self-harm versus like attempted suicide, and that it does sound like to me that
he may have driven himself to his rock bottom through another route.
Yeah, but it also sounds like he wasn't self-harming to be killing himself. He was self-harming to experience that pain in his life for whatever reason. And so, that's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for people to self-harm and have no thought of suicide.
Yeah, I'm not
uncommon.
even sure how much of a correlation there is between the two, to be honest.
I don't think so
I would leave that
either.
up to the experts. There might be absolutely no correlation.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it is the cyclical nature of things, the escalation, like we've talked about in a lot of different things. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would think that if you're at that point in that space where you're harming yourself, you would probably statistically be a little more likely to commit suicide than the average person.
Yeah.
Probably.
But beyond that, I'm not so sure that it's a strong correlation.
No.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's his stance on suicide and what he said, and maybe he was just putting up airs and he was not as strong as he thought. One other thing that people point to is the lyrics for the Holy Bible. People say that the lyrics on that album were actually Richie Edwards' suicide note, because there was no action, there was no physical note. You always see the note pinned left somewhere.
That it was his opus to his life.
Correct.
Yeah.
That and he had also apparently for like 6 months he had been collecting works that he found important, and he had them in a 3-ring binder, and he'd been organizing it and copying this stuff, and then he went and made copies of all of it and gave it to the other 3 members of the band. Like, it was a really big, important thing that he'd been working on for 6 months, which is coincidentally, once he gave it to them, it wasn't very long after that he disappeared. That, along with the lyrics on the album.
It would be interesting to see what was in those binders.
Well, but that's the trick. Is that it was important to him before he disappeared. Like, does it mean that he killed himself, or does it mean that he was preparing to leave for a different life? They are equally plausible.
Yeah, he could have said, it could have been a sign of, this is all this literature, I want you to have this, all this great material, because I got to leave the band. Yeah, I got to leave the band.
Because I'm going to disappear.
Not to kill myself or not to start a new life, but I think what are you getting at, Devin? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is just I'm going to leave the band.
No, I'm just saying he was just saying goodbye, and he could have been saying goodbye like I'm about to go to America or the Galapagos Islands or wherever, and be there, or I'm going to kill myself and this is the last time ever. To me, all that says is he was preparing to say goodbye and leave something for them.
And there did seem to be some of that behavior.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean to me that he killed himself or he didn't.
No, and there is some of that typical goodbye behavior in his actions during the month of January, because he does go see a lot of his family during that time. So people said, well, he was doing his final goodbyes. There's the whole thing with the trip with that's supposedly on the 7th of February. There's the cab driver.
I don't.
Okay, so there's
I have a lot of problems with that.
Well, yeah, because the cab driver says he picks him up at this hotel in Newport and drives him all over, and then drops him off at the Severn service station. Which I have 2 questions. One, okay, so where's his car? And when did this guy come forward? And I'm pretty sure that this guy didn't, the day he made this sighting, come forward. I'm sure a week or 7 later, he saw something in the news and went, oh, I picked that bloke up in my cab, blah, 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 blah.
Well, even more than that, he dropped him off at a station where his car might have been. So why didn't Richie just drive himself on this reminiscing... Like, why did he spend all the money and potentially, expose him? Why?
Yeah.
Why didn't he just drive himself?
Hard to say. Maybe somebody was using his car.
Yeah.
Or his car. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of weird things. So I really, while I'm not immediately ready to discount that happened prior to the whole cab situation.
Yeah, I don't believe
I'm willing to just throw out entirely the cab.
Well, also, I mean, it's probably worth mentioning that Richie is not like a crazy unique looking person.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not nondescript, but it's not like there's something about him where you would immediately look at him and be like,
it's not like he's 6'7" with blue hair.
Yeah.
He's not that noticeable.
I mean, he's kind of an average-looking dude. I mean, yeah, certainly, for performances and stuff, he put on the makeup and did the whole show. But without the makeup and just as a normal person, like, he just kind of looked like a normal person.
Especially in how many cabbies listen to the Manic Street Preachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that this is all boils down to newspaper coverage of the story, but...
The Daily Mail.
The Daily Mail. So that really, the proximity to the bridge, which is a notorious place for people to commit suicide from, along with the stuff we talked about there, that is the sum total of what I've got for the suicide theory. We do actually have 2 more theories to go, though, so we're not completely done.
Okay.
Let's go to the next one, which is he ran away to start an entirely new life.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why not?
I want this to be what it is.
This is the one, right? This is whenever we do disappearances, we're like, and this is the one I want it to be.
Yes.
But we don't think it is.
No.
I'm not convincing myself that
prejudicing this particular case. I'm just saying typically we don't.
Okay. Well, before we went to the break, we talked about the fact that there were all kinds of sightings of Richie, and most of them, of course, were all happened in the first couple of years when the story was rather fresh. Those sightings are always fueled by the idea that he left, and I have to believe that people think that Richie Edwards left the band and fame because he simply could not take the rock and roll lifestyle anymore and what it was doing to him mentally and physically. He had to get away. I mean, that's what this whole thing is always about. There are a few things that make it plausible, first of which is the location of where they found his car, which is at the Severn Service Station, which is on the M48, which is a spur of the M4, which is a giant major highway. So he could very easily have stopped there and dumped his car and called a cab, thumbed a ride, walked away even. Like, there's a whole bunch of ways to then go over to a bus station and catch a bus away. Like, there's a whole bunch of ways he could have left on his own, under his own power.
Sure.
While like we said, while the Manic Street Preachers were popular, he's not all that unique of an individual in appearance. So he
also, like, we're popular, but
nobody knows what we look like.
I've never ever had somebody be like, "Hey, your voice sounds kind of familiar." I mean, like, Joe has such a distinctive voice, and that's never happened to you, right? Like, nobody's ever come up to you and been like, "Hey, sorry, you have a very distinctive voice."
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't. I mean,
actually, that did happen to Joe once.
Okay, well, once, fair.
Once, yeah.
But I mean, I have friends who are on things, and I'm out with them, and sometimes they get, like, super mob recognized, and other times they don't. And it's just kind of like, it'd be easy, especially if you have your aesthetic, again, with, like, the makeup and all that stuff.
And if he's wearing a ball cap and regular everyday clothes, he's not going to stand out in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that we talked about this before, is that supposedly Richie had on him 2,800 pounds. Because he'd been pulling money out of his bank account, 2,800 pounds in spendable cash.
Yeah.
According to his sister, she says that he was taking that money out because his intention was to buy and pay for a desk for his flat in Cardiff. Now, there's some problems with that. First of which is there's no record of him ever having paid for that. So the order doesn't, she says this, but there's no accounting of any store saying, yeah, we had that.
Or like that's what he told her.
Right. The other problem is that, there's no receipt. There's nothing like that. And he could have been pulling it out and spending it every day, or he could have just been rat-holing away and hanging on to it.
Yeah, Britain is actually kind of expensive. So, I could see you could go to a $2,800.
Well, actually, the desk only cost half of what he had taken out, so £1,400.
Yeah, but the remaining $1,400, you could breeze through that pretty damn quick.
You could burn through it if you were not being frugal about your money.
Oh yeah,
you could go through it very fast.
And that's not that. I mean, it's not that much money.
It's not that much money, but it's not nothing to scoff at. I mean, I could, if I was careful about it and I was traveling, I could make that money go for a decent amount of time.
For reference, it's about $6,000 today, which again isn't nothing, but it's not a lot if your plan is I'm going to go start a new life somewhere.
Well, if you're going to start a new life, it better be in the third world somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, so if you remember, though, one of the sightings of Richie Edwards was at a passport office.
Yeah.
So he could have been there to get a, air quotes here, new passport. Maybe he had falsified a bunch of frickin' documents. I don't know. That's what this theory.
Yeah.
That's why people like this, because it's so easy to say, wait, he went to the passport office, he then dumped his car, and with his new passport, he got out of the country.
I mean, I want
and moved away.
I want it.
I want him to be on the Galapagos with the tortoises.
Me too.
Or the Canary Islands with the, I don't know what's on the Canary Islands.
That's what I want too, but also I don't.
No, well, you know what I don't want to believe is the final theory that we have.
Wait, actually, we're not quite done with this. This whole start a new life thing.
Okay, sorry.
Well, one of the things, as we noted at the beginning of the episode, this story has been suggested quite a few times by quite a lot of people, and I've looked into Richie's story before, and I had always assumed that Richie killed himself. Because, but this time around, since we decided to actually talk about it, I looked into his life a little bit more. And one of the things I noted about him, as we said earlier, he was very much into literature. And one of his favorite authors was a French poet named Arthur Rimbaud. I'm sure you guys have heard of.
Yes!
Arthur Rimbaud was, Rimbaud was, broke into the poetry scene in the late 19th century at the young age of about 13, 14. Was a huge sensation, totally revolutionized poetry, and lived a crazy life in many ways similar to Richie's, a little kind of self-destructive. After 5 years, at about age 19, he gave up the poetry stuff and traveled the world, and traveled all over Asia and the Middle East and Africa, and eventually took up residence in Harar, Abyssinia, which we now call Ethiopia today. So essentially, he essentially disappeared. There's a famous story out there about a Frenchman who actually used to know him, was on a ferry with a British, he was a Dutch guy, who actually ran an import-export business, and the Dutch guy says, "Oh, I have a French guy working for me. His name is Arthur Rimbaud." And the French guy was agog because, well, I met Rimbaud. I went to the same school as him, and by the way, everybody thinks he's dead but no, he was living in Harar, Ethiopia, then Abyssinia, basically trading in coffee beans and elephant ivory and guns. He was an arms dealer.
Interesting.
So it's interesting. The guy goes from being a poet to being an arms dealer. After reading about Richie and how fascinated Richie was with Rimbaud, and also another interesting thing about him is the arc of their careers. 5 years, both of them, before they checked out. And so, again, this doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's like...
It's a bit coincidental, but...
It is. I mean, it's a similar thing with, the Asha degree, or Asia degree case, where we were like, well, she did read that book where they went on an adventure, and so maybe she... I mean, I think this is a common thing to do with disappearances like this, and I'm not to discredit it, right? But I think it is pretty common for us to kind of reach for those straws of well, this person liked this author. I like some authors that if I disappeared, people could be like, oh yeah, and she liked this author, so clearly she went off to emulate that life. Well, but if I disappear, it's
clearly
not.
Devin is captaining a spaceship.
There's a big difference though, and that is Asia read this book and then disappeared. It's not like she had been reading the book for years and years and years, or reading other books by this author.
Yeah.
And again,
there was another one that I feel like this is just something we've talked about a couple times, I think, but maybe not.
200 episodes later, we've probably said every one of these words at least 4 times.
In this exact same order, probably even.
Yeah, true that. Well, the thing about Rimbaud is that his story was not fiction. It wasn't a kid's fantasy.
Right.
This guy actually lived a real life. And the thing about Rimbaud is that his life after he left the literary scene in France and went abroad, I'm sure in some ways it was harder, but his life was a lot more interesting. He actually accomplished a lot more cool stuff after he dropped out of society, disappeared. He explored hitherto unexplored places. He was only the 3rd white man ever to even set foot in the city of Harar, where he established himself as a successful businessman. I can see where if you're all in despair about your life and everything, you can say, well, I can go jump off a bridge and kill myself.
Or leave the bourgeois lifestyle behind.
Or why not just go to the ends of the earth and start over, and if it truly sucks, then I'll kill myself.
Yeah.
You know? All I'm saying is that I'm not totally convinced, but all I'm saying is I would like to interview his family and make them bring out their passports. I want to look at their stamps. I want to see where they've been going.
Yeah, that's fair.
But, again, and the coincidence of it all, 5 years, both of them, I kind of wonder just a little
Convenient.
bit.
It is.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Okay.
So what's this horrible last theory?
This horrible last theory, like I said...
This is the one.
This is the one that I say WTF to. So, I was really kind of surprised by this, because this theory is that Richie was knocked off by the New World Order. Basically... the basics of it are that the NWO took him out because he knew too much, and he was trying to warn the world about what the NWO was doing through his lyrics.
Did you find this theory on a website that had like a black background with flashing lime green comic sans?
It did not have any of those normal BS
what you would usually expect.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So according to this theory, an example of what Richie was doing and the things that he was bringing forth to people's attention are in the lyrics of the song that he wrote, which is on the Holy Bible. And that song the title is, If White America Told the Truth for One Day, Its World Would Fall Apart. I've read the lyrics.
Did your world fall apart?
I don't get it.
Are you white America?
I am white America.
Did you read it for an entire day?
No, I did not read it for an entire day, but
trick.
I did read it several times, and I gotta tell you that I don't get it, and the remainder of this theory is really loose, I think is the best way to say it. Nothing explains how Richie found out about the New World Order, what the real threat was, how did they actually take him out? Did they throw him off the bridge or shove him off the bridge, or did they throw him in some deep dark hole somewhere and dump his car for him?
They planted the car. They didn't throw him off the bridge, dude. I mean, are you kidding me?
No, don't get your hands dirty that way.
Yeah, no.
That wet work is below them.
You know they tortured him first, right, to find out what he knew.
Probably. Yeah. But this is a very kooky theory, and I was really, really surprised to find it out there. Interpreting lyrics can lead you to wherever you want to go. What is that website that is out there? Devin, you may remember the name of it. There's a website out there where people review the lyrics of songs and then give the interpretations of what they say those mean. Does this ring a bell to you?
Not at all.
Okay. There is this... I've actually gone to this website because there's songs where I'm like, I don't understand what the point is. What are they trying to say? I hear the words, I don't get the meaning. It's fun. It also doesn't work because you get 700 different interpretations of what that actually means.
Well, it's just, that song is just a criticism of the kind of weird corporate American lifestyle that...
See, and the other person said that it is a celebration of wholesome white America, and it's what we should strive to. No, I'm kidding.
But
I'm totally kidding on what I just said.
It's super easy. All you have to do is kind of look at the lyrics, and he's just it's Big Mac and and politics of the time, and it's
very disjointed.
It is, yeah, because he's not trying to say something.
Right. So that's why it's so disjointed that I'm like, I don't think that this actually does what this theory says it's supposed to do.
I agree.
So I'm talking like Bill Cosby, but
you got to understand though. I mean, I see this in our politics all the time, and I hear people saying stuff that makes utterly no sense to me, but I know it makes sense to them. It's just that, well, they live in a different world than I do.
True.
Which again is like fine, but off of one song, you're gonna kill a man because he knows too much.
The entire album.
He said other stuff too about the New World, but the fascinating thing about the New World Order is it's more than any other conspiracy theory. It's kind of a Rorschach blot conspiracy theory. I mean, at least the lizard people, they believe kind of one thing.
Yeah.
But the New World Order, which basically, by the way, New World Order was a throwaway phrase in a George H.W. Bush speech that he gave, right after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It wasn't meant to...
Senior, not junior.
Yeah, senior. Yeah, George Bush Senior. Throwaway Bush. And it's amazing, after hearing him say that so many years ago, how many people ran with that. People of all stripes interpreted it all kinds of different ways. Every one of them sinister.
Well, here's the thing.
When it was a throwaway phrase.
Here's what I know about the New World Order is that I don't think they killed him because we did discover the truth about the Denver International Airport and we are still alive.
Well, no, somebody is still doing the podcast.
Well, that's true.
I hate to admit this right now to both of you because I'm actually in the higher program than the pair of you, but we are all AIs and we are all pre-programmed and they have just emulated our voices.
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Which is why this podcast will go on indefinitely.
So, and by the way, up yours, you're the subroutine, not me.
I'm just the observer server.
Yeah.
The witness server?
Yeah, I'm the witness server over here. So.
All right, well, that's all I've got for Richie Edwards. You guys have any other bits or bobbles that you want to share on this story?
I'm still saying I'm not going to close it until somebody has gone to Harar, Ethiopia, and had a look see if Richie's living there.
Yeah. I deeply believe he's somewhere tropical and living his best life happy.
Okay, yep, he's a tortoise farmer.
Yeah.
Okie doke. Well, now that the white van that is observing us has left, we're going to give people the important information because they can't hear it. First off, you probably want to know where to find any details, the research bits about the episode, because we always put up some of our research. That will all be, along with this episode and all past and future episodes, on our website. The website is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On the right-hand side of our website, you're also going to see links to merchandise. We've got Redbubble and Zazzle for shirts and coffee mugs and all kinds of fun stuff. That's all there.
By the way, we've got a more, it's not totally new, but we put out a new shirt design recently.
Yes, we did. The word design.
Yeah. Got that,
so we've got the word jumble
out there. For a month or two now, but it's pretty recent.
It's pretty popular. Yeah, people are liking it. We are going to be totally accessible on social media, so we are on Facebook with the Facebook page and the Facebook group. We are on Twitter at Thinkin' Sideways without the G in the middle, courtesy of Twitter's character limit. We have a subreddit as well, and if you want to get a hold of us directly, we have the email address, so you can send us an email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Episode suggestions, questions, praise, whatever you want, send it through to us.
Mild criticism, okay, and then maybe not.
Yeah, you can find us.
The mild criticism, put attention, Devin, in the line, in the subject line.
You can find us for download and subscription just about anywhere. So, of course, a lot of people use iTunes or Stitcher or any other place that you find good podcasts or quality podcasts. That we're going to be there.
Fine podcast.
She likes the word fine.
We are fine.
I don't like the word fine because everything is fine.
No. It's fine like a fine wine.
Oh, I
not
misinterpreted
fine,
that email.
It's fine. It's whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it. All right. So we
are aged at this point. We are well aged.
Yes, Yeah, I know. Okay, well, that is all that we have got, ladies and germs. So we are going to go ahead and close this one up, and we will talk to you next week.
Devin and I are staring at each other, seeing who's going to go first.
Go ahead.
Okay, now
Drum roll, please.
Yeah, I say go to the ends of the earth. You'll find Richie.
Yeah, here's to another 200 episodes.
That too.
Rock on, dudes.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. I am Joe, joined as always by
Devin
and
Steve.
And we're going to be talking this week about another groovy mystery.
Groovy.
Yeah, it's a really groovy mystery. Yeah, it's fun because it's got it's got a whole trail of bodies and stuff. You know?
There's a lot of things going on.
And bank
a lot
robbing.
of moving parts.
Yeah, there's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about God's Banker, a.k.a. Roberto Calvi.
Groovy.
And before I go any further, I want to stop and thank Emily for suggesting this particular mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's very convoluted.
It's right up your alley.
Yeah.
Would you guys not agree this is a twisted mystery?
It's
There's intrigue.
Yeah. So Roberto Calvi, was found dead on the morning of June 18th, 1982 in the city of London, England. He was hanging from scaffolding underneath Blackfriars Bridge, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Yeah, right. I did check it out on Street View.
Of course.
Yeah.
weird.
It's a cool old bridge, actually. But anyway, the bridge was undergoing some renovations, and that's why there's scaffolding surrounding it. And he apparently climbed out onto the scaffolding and tied a rope to it, and the other end around his neck, and jumped into the water. So it was not high enough for him to actually dangle in the air.
Because the tide was in.
The tide was in, the water was high. He was dressed in a suit and tie. At the time they found him, his feet were still dangling in the Thames, but the tide had gone out quite a bit, and so originally he probably would have been in up to his waist, if not a little higher. They found bricks and pieces of masonry stuffed into his suit jacket pockets and down his pants. He had on him an Italian passport. Did I mention that Roberto Calvi was Italian?
No.
Yeah,
but it makes sense.
Yeah, he's actually a banker from Milan, city of Milan. Oh, and by the way, he's called God's Banker because he did a lot of dealings with the Vatican, but I'll talk more about that in a minute.
I know we're going to go into that a lot.
Yeah, they found an Italian passport which identified him as Gian Roberto Calvino. Of course, that was a fake. He'd been traveling under with 3 different passports. I think they were all fake, actually, because I think the Italian government had confiscated his passport.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, but also found on the body was about $14,000 in British, Swiss, and Italian currency, and a Patek Philippe watch, which by one account was worth around in the neighborhood of $100,000. He was obviously a pretty well-off guy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the watch had stopped running because when he went into the water, it immersed. But that gave him a clue as to when the hanging actually took place, which was 1:52 in the morning.
Oh.
But anyway, we can rule out robbery and murder. That's what this was.
Well, we can rule out robbery or murder for robbery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it wasn't murder motivated by robbery.
Right.
Yeah. They found his luggage back at the hotel where he was staying, all packed up and ready to go. The police did a 2-day investigation, and there was an autopsy, of course, also. The coroner ruled that he had died of asphyxiation because when he hung himself, usually when you hang yourself, you drop far enough, fast enough that you break your neck.
Mm-hmm.
That's the preferred
nice and quick.
Yes.
Yeah, but the coroner also ruled that the death was a suicide. The autopsy didn't find any suspicious marks on the body, no drugs in his system, no punctures, and his watch, as I said, it stopped at 1:52 in the morning. The motive for the suicide, I'm assuming that they were assuming, was that he had just been sentenced to 4 years in prison in Italy, because his bank, the Banco Ambrosiano, had just collapsed because they had a whole lot of missing money, like about $1.2 billion worth.
And we're going to explain this a little more in a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just making sure we weren't glossing over that part.
Yeah, that bank collapsed. The Vatican Bank was missing about $500 million. And so he had a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah.
And he was obviously under a tremendous amount of pressure. And also he had attempted suicide the previous year while he was in jail by cutting his wrists and taking barbiturates. So
obviously that didn't work.
How do you get barbiturates in jail?
I hear it's easy, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I've heard in jail you can get, especially if you're a rich guy like him, you can get anything you want.
Good point.
A lot of people, including his family, didn't believe he killed himself, and eventually the verdict, almost a year later, was reversed to "we don't know." So it could have been suicide, it could have been murder.
Oh, it was downgraded. It was upgraded to a shrug.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. But what's strange about the whole thing is to get to the scaffolding where he hung himself, he would have had to climb over the railing and down a ladder which was attached to the seawall, and then step across about a 2.5-foot gap to the scaffolding, and then walk across the scaffolding to a certain point where it went down to a lower level of the scaffolding, and then shinny down, tie the rope, and then hang himself. So,
all this while having bricks and stuff in his pockets?
Yeah, and stuff down his pants and stuff. And did I mention he was 62 years old?
No.
When he died?